From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because, as I say, every single week, Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. Hey, I want to thank you for joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV, or you might be watching the show on YouTube or Facebook or listening on your favorite podcast. It's September the 4th, 2023, and incidentally, it's Labor Day. So hope you're having a great Labor Day here, and that over the weekend you had some really good dove hunting and some good deer, getting ready for the deer season prep time. Excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat to start the show out today. Hey, listen, there's no better place to start a conversation about prepping for deer season or looking back on the wonderful social sport that dove hunting is in Mississippi than to welcome back my friend Cuzz Strickland, who really needs no introduction. Cuzz, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. It's a pleasure. Love talking to you, Ricky. And I'm amazed how many times after I've been on the show, I'll go out and I hear it. You think, man, you got all the bases covered, and then you hear, man, I heard you on Super Talk. It's a powerful vehicle. I'm honored to be here.
Hey, listen, I enjoy having these conversations. So when I get a note from someone, or I'm out and about, and someone walks up to me and says, man, I really enjoyed that show, it reminds me that people actually listen. Because when I'm doing this show, and I know you feel same way about the Fistful of Dirt podcast you have, you are having this wonderful conversation that you're getting so much out of that just so happens to be something other people are going to listen to too. But if you can bring that authenticity and that passion and love for the outdoors to a conversation like you have, and I hope that I'm able to do the same thing here, people are going to pay attention to it. That's the bottom line.
That's right. The best ones are always when you forget you're recording and it turns into a conversation. I know you know that.
I do. It's good. I got a note once from a guy. I may have mentioned this to you before, but it's worthy of mentioning again. From a guy who said that he works at a factory up in North Mississippi, and he and his fellow workers, what they'll do at lunchtime is they'll go into their little lunch area and they'll turn Super Talk Outdoors on Monday, and as they'll eat their sandwiches and listen to the show. And I thought, wow, man, see that, I love that. Because they love hunting and fishing, and they just love celebrating the outdoors with us. But to me, that's success, man. That's success when you got a bunch of guys in a factory getting together, blue collar guys who love the outdoors, who are paying attention. I love that.
I do too. I had a mom come up to me. I spoke, I don't remember what it was, about a month and a half ago, and I might have already told you this, but she came up to me. She had 3 boys, just stair steps, and she said, I love your podcast. I put it on my boys' phones. And I was like, really? She said, yeah, they love hunting, and I don't have to monitor yours. And that just made my night. I was like, and that's no marketing ploy. Same way with your content. I'm telling you, I have learned people are looking for that. And wherever they can find it, they're going to lock on to it.
Here's the other thing. And this, coming back sort of to passion and authenticity. If you fake it,
they will know.
They will figure it out so quick it'll make your head spin. So if you don't know, you better say so, because there's always going to be smarter people paying attention.
Yeah, I got a good format. When I find a guest, just like I had you on 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, I send questions ahead of time, because that spurs better responses, and it also spurs better questions from your guest. And I ask them a question and I let them talk. What a unique format that is. And we learned early on, it doesn't have to be a celebrity. Interesting people are everywhere. You just got to find them.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Hey, listen, over this weekend, the opening of dove season happened, and I referred to it before. refer to duck hunting sort of as the ultimate social sport, because when you're in the blind with your buddies, and even if you don't have birds, the ragging and the fun that you can have and the laughs and the memories you make, is what a wonderful way to celebrate life. But dove hunting's right there with it, man. It's not this long, extended, gigantic season, but a lot of people get together, families come together, friends come together in preparation of the field, certainly the dove hunt itself, and this, the cooking the dove afterwards and enjoying time together. But dove hunting is a great tradition in Mississippi, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm from Natchez, and I thought it was big until I moved up to West Point to the Golden Triangle, and one of the first things I got introduced to up here was the Dove Club. And it's just a circle of people who everybody fixes a field, and, for a week you go to different spots, and, it's people rushing to get to this point or that point, and it's huge. I planted a huge cornfield in my dove field this year, and I did not have the heart to mow anything down. I'm just leaving it for the deer. So we did not have a dove shoot at my place, but that's okay. We still had a big barbecue and people hang out. We did a little fishing.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you'll love this. When I was growing up, as I may have mentioned before, I found a love of the outdoors from my dad and my grandfathers. But as I got a little bit older, I'll say 15, 16 years old, my dad met a doctor friend of his who had family up in West Point. And I didn't start hunting dove until I was about, 15 years old. And that's where we drove. We drove up, AJ McMurphy and his son, Bo, who's a good friend of mine. Bo's in the home building business down here on the coast. And we'd come up to West Point, and good Lord, I mean, I got, if you do that first, if that's your first dove hunting experience, then you're spoiled for the rest of your life, because I've never seen so many birds. Also, the topography of the land was amazing. And then, when they piled up all those birds at the end and cleaned them and then cooked them, boy, that is part of the heritage of West Point, isn't it?
It is. It's a really big deal. And it's just like one of the first people I ran into was Tony Rossetti, and he's from down in your part of the world. He's a Gulf Coast boy, but he's been inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. Unbelievable USA trap shooter. He still holds all kind of records. But let me tell you something. I got stuck next to him in a dove field, and I've never been so humbled in my life. I mean, these people up here, they take it very serious.
I know they do. Hey, listen, my farmer friend who I lease 3 separate farms from up in the Mississippi Delta, he put a dove field, planted some sunflower seeds in the middle of, I don't know, 4,000 acres of corn that was planted, and they of course they harvested it. And I'll send you a video and just show you the number of birds, but it's insane. Rarely do you get that perfect scenario like that. And incidentally, the sunflower seeds were planted underneath a power line. So, what more do you need to know about?
Yeah, who needs to go down to Argentina when you got that in Mississippi? Good gracious alive!
Oh my goodness! I listen. I listen. Of course, I listen to your podcast every week, and you and your daughter continue to do an amazing job. She's what a great sidekick she is for you. But you had the opportunity to be a speaker recently at a really important Outdoors Hall of Fame event. How did that go? It's the Legends of the Outdoors Hall of Fame, and some people, he doesn't publicize it a bunch, but when you go and you look at the names that's been inducted to that, it's crazy. Fred Bear, Bill Dance, Johnny Moore, it's crazy. And they asked me to be the keynote speaker this year, and it happened to be the year that Kevin Van Dam was being inducted to the Hall of Fame. And I had a Kevin Van Dam story, and it was humbling. And the reason that event's humbling, because they'll bring in 5 or 6 people that got inducted, and they'll all have family members with them. And when somebody introduces them, there's tears flowing, and it's just everything is for the right reason. And to be the keynote speaker when Kevin Van Dam went in it was pretty special. Hey, first of all, I always thought that he had such a cool name.
Yeah, KVD.
What a great name.
Yeah.
And gosh, I remember so many years ago watching him on the bass tournament trail. And first of all, he's a really, really, really good fisherman. But on top of that, he's a really good person. I mean, he's the kind of guy that people just were drawn to. So, I mean, you have to have a lot of success to become a legend like he's become. Yeah, but you got to have the ability to touch people too, and his ability to touch people is just incredible, isn't it? In fact, why don't we do this? We're at the end of this segment. We'll come back on the other side and let you talk about that, and you can actually tell your Kevin Van Dam story, which I think is a good one. Right. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation on this Labor Day with Ronnie Cuzz Strickland from the Mossy Oaks family. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors from the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay. I like to say that every week. Actually, I'll be doing some shows from up in the Mississippi Delta in the coming months, so I'll be saying right here in the Mississippi Delta soon, as we got to get back up there and get busy. We got a couple of food plots we want to make, and we got some work to do. We got a lot of cutting to do. We got some spraying to do. We're running out of time, but we work with our farmer up there, and he's still harvesting. So we got to wait till him to get done, and then we'll get busy. After a couple of good weekends, we'll be back on track again. But I had the opportunity to visit with my friend Ronnie Cuzz Strickland, and when we went to break, we were talking about he had the opportunity to be a speaker at this Legends event, and Kevin Van Dam was inducted into this Hall of Fame, and we were talking about how, he not only was Kevin Van Dam a great fisherman, a great bass fisherman, just a legend bass fisherman, but he's a good person, and people connected with him. And I mentioned to Ronnie Cuzz Strickland before we went to break, before we came back off a break, that he has that ability to connect. Ronnie Cuzz has that ability to connect with people. That's one of the reasons why I think his Fistful of Dirt podcast is doing so well. But to reconnect with Van Dam and be able to sort of convey the story of how you guys connected, it was a special moment for you, wasn't it?
It was. He's Elvis. He really is. You get into that fishing world. Hank Parker told me one time, he said, "Cuz nobody's at his level." Hank Parker won the Classic twice, back to back, and to hear that kind of praise. But I told my Kevin Van Dam story, and this happened decades ago before Mossy Oak had any fishing clothes, and there was a grand opening of a store, and I think it was in Georgia, somewhere down there. It was a big store, all kinds of hunting stuff. They also had a boat store, and for their grand opening, they were bringing in Kevin Van Dam. And Toxie called me in there, or Bill Sugg, somebody did, saying we need somebody there. And I was looking at the poster, and I said, man, I got this. I'll be the Mossy Oak rep. That's all I was, because he's going to be there. I said, I'd kind of like to meet him. And I got down there early, because there's no such thing as on time. You're either early or you're late. So I went down on a Friday, found the store, met the manager and all that. And I said, what time are we kicking off in the morning? She said, 8 o'clock. I said, okay. So I'll roll up there at 7. And there's 2 vehicles already there. The guy that owns the place and Kevin Van Dam. I didn't know that was his truck. I kind of thought it was, but I went in and I've never met him. He didn't know me from Adam, I didn't think. I walked in, I hear this voice. Hey, Cuzz, do you drink coffee? And I looked around, it's Kevin Van Dam. He's not only is he making coffee, he brought in like 5 boxes of donuts, and we started visiting, and he stuck kind of with me all day. And by the end of the day, I felt like I was his long lost uncle or something. It was, and he wasn't doing that for any reason. And he did that with everybody. And that was the gist of my speech, was what separates good people to that great level. It's not only you got to be great at your craft, but when you treat people like that, it just happens. And boy, he had that. So I think I had a pointed speech for him. He got a kick out of it.
Well, hey, Cuzz, what was so cool about the podcast where you were just reflecting about the fact that you had to give this speech, and you actually was a podcast where you didn't even have a guest, you just talked, and your daughter made it a podcast. And she should have made it a podcast. She has a really good instinct on this. But what you talked about was this ability. Listen, people want you to treat them well, and I think the golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. But actually, there's a wonderful book that's been written called "Break All the Rules," and it said he believed that you should turn the golden rule sort of around a bit, and he said instead of treating people the way you want to be treated, treat people the way they want to be treated. Some people, the ability to connect with people, that empathy that you can bring to the table is the thing that, you told a story about a CEO, I think it was with Dodge or whatever, but the reality was this ability to connect with people. You can bring all the smarts in the world to the table, but people aren't going to follow you if you can't connect with them, and they're not going to be inspired by you if they can't connect with you. And one of the cool things about that podcast where you talked about it was that you've had this opportunity to meet so many cool people. Some of them just focused on the outdoors, and people don't know who they are. Some of them big-time outdoor personalities. But a common thread of all of them is their ability to connect with people. And I love the way you talked about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the great ones have that in common, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And that people, everybody thinks they're important or whatever, but Mr. Fox, he said that's why God gave you two ears and one mouth. People love to be listened to, and people come up to me, and it's still humbling. Oh, I saw this and I saw that. Well, you know what? If it's important to them, it's important to me. Last night, I went with a buddy of mine to look at a tractor up in New Albany. Last thing I expected to run into was the guy that owned the tractor. When I got out, he's like, "Are you Cuzz?" Yeah. And we talked for 30 minutes before we even looked at the tractor and took a picture and all that. But, it was important to him. Does it make me feel silly? Yeah, it really does. But, that's the responsibility you're handed if you've been on whatever. So, and I kind of wear that like a badge, and I'm looking for it. I'm not going to pass by anybody if I can. And, that's not a lot to ask, is to treat somebody with some respect and shake their hand and wear that Mississippi badge. I'm a Mississippi.
Oh, for sure, man. Hey, you mentioned Mr. Fox. When I talked to Toxie, or when I talked to his two sons, or anyone who has been inspired by Mr. Fox, I mean, what a living legend that man is.
Yeah, he, physically he's pretty weak right now. Still sharp, absolutely sharp as a tack. He had his 93rd or 94th birthday. His birthday's the day after mine. It was the day after the Legends Hall of Fame thing. But yeah, he's reached legend status. And again, it was just kind of by the way he handled himself. He wasn't in the camel business. He helped Toxie, but everybody that he dealt with Brian Foods, he did the livestock buying. There's just hundreds of thousands of people that know him. And he's one of them people you have a tough decision. I'll be thinking, I wonder what Mr. Fox would do.
Yeah, that would make a great T-shirt, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt about that. When you think about brand loyalty, Mossy Oak is one of those brands that has sort of stood the test of time. And you always had competitors that are cropping up all over the place. Yeah. We see that in the digital world. We've talked about that before on our show about how TV has changed and all that. But the connection that people have with a brand like Mossy Oak is one that can really stand the test of time, isn't it?
It is. And, Toxie from the outset, and I was kind of here from the get-go, and it was always not about him or me or Bill or Bob or anybody. It was always about the critters and the habitat and all that. And we just stood by that. And it's like you said, people have a pretty good cheese meter. They can tell when you're sincere and when you're not by your actions and your words. And I'm very proud of the actions of this company as far as conservation and doing the right thing. And of course, we all have to have revenue. That's what drives the engine. But the way we've went about it, and all that stems from Toxie's marketing background, has been, hey, just be yourself, be who you are. And if you're not a good person, you probably won't be here long. But it's been fun to watch. I'm very proud of that. I told you I had a bunch of outdoor writers up here one time, and we were giving a tour, and they were interviewing Tox in his office and asking, what his corporate plan was. And he pulled out that little piece of paper with a handwritten note that said, "Keep the team together." And it's kind of been as simple as that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a corporate guy. You know what people and the team means to success.
You can't, it's hard to teach culture. And if somebody wants to change a culture, I was involved in significant change efforts as a CEO. And you're talking about a 3 to 5 year process, even if you can do it. And so the fact that you can keep that institutional knowledge that drives the organization, the culture, the core of the culture, the heart of the culture, the soul of the culture over so many years, what a heck of a story that is. And I'll tell you something really interesting. After I met Toxie through this show and his sons and you, what I have found is, for an outdoorsman, you'll see Realtree over here and Mossy Oak over there. I have found that anything that's Realtree, with all due respect to my Realtree friends, anything that's Realtree, I kind of put it in a box and set it aside, because I've tended to gravitate toward Mossy Oak because I know the people at Mossy Oak, and because it's a Mississippi company, and I want to support a Mississippi company. And when I'm out and about, I want to have Mossy Oak on. I want to be proud wearing it. And I bet there's a lot of people who tell you that.
It is. It's like my grandsons. You better not hand them anything that's not bottomland. and it ain't nothing I've done. They've just seen the how we roll. It's all about how you roll, and that's, like you said, that's hard to get.
Yeah, I love that though, man. Stand the test of time. Hey, Cuzz, it's been a pleasure to visit with you, my friend.
Well, happy Labor Day. I hope everything in the Delta goes good. And post some pictures of your food plots as you're working.
Yeah, we will. And next time we're in, we'll talk about, the fun that you're having working on your food plots. This has been Cuzz Strickland from Mossy Oak. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. I really appreciate you joining us. I always enjoy those conversations with my buddy Cuzz. And this past weekend with dove season and all that, what a great opportunity for all of us to enjoy the outdoors with our family. I always talk about duck hunting being sort of that ultimate social sport, but if you really, in Mississippi, the ultimate social sport is dove hunting, where we can all get together and do the things we enjoy doing, even before and during, and then certainly after the hunt. So much fun. Hey, listen, I'm excited now to move over to my friend Justin Brooks, who's the Director of Governmental Relations at the Nature Conservancy. He worked with my good friend Alex Littlejohn, who's accepted a job for Weyerhaeuser, and I'm so excited for Alex. I'm not surprised, incidentally, because Alex is an absolute incredible conservation leader, and we exchanged notes yesterday. He's going to be joining me in a future show to talk a little bit more about his new job and to look back, actually, and reflect on his time at the Nature Conservancy. So without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Justin into the conversation. And first of all, say good morning to you. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Ricky. Doing great. We also miss Alex here at TNC and wish him all the best.
I know you do. Listen, if I may call you son at some point during this conversation, because I have a son named Justin who works at Price Waterhouse up in New York City, and he incidentally loves the outdoors as well. Listen, what I want to do real quick is I want you to give the elevator speech on what you do at the Nature Conservancy. We're actually going to come back to that and talk a little bit more about the farm bill and some other stuff that's happening at the federal level, anything in Mississippi that you want to talk about. But I really want to start the show talking a little bit about your love of the outdoors. But before we do that, what's your elevator speech on your job?
Yeah, so I serve as the Government Relations Director here in Mississippi, and my job is to essentially connect the dots between the work that we're doing on the ground with our conservation projects and how that relates to policy and vice versa. Nearly, as you all know, every part of our daily life is affected by policy, and it's no different for conservation. So both on a federal and state level, I try to communicate with lawmakers, let them know the effects and the needs policy-wise in the conservation arena.
I tell you, man, it's interesting. What I try to do on this show is keep it light for the most part, talking about why we love the outdoors and why Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. I feel strongly about that. Maybe one day we'll get a bill passed that says Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America, and maybe get some license tags that say that. That would be cool. But the fact is, though, every now and then, and I say I won't overdo it. There have been a couple of instances, the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund, the efforts by some to make the sale and transfer of whitetail deer legal in the state. Those are just a couple of examples where we're going to have to focus on those issues on this show. And the way I say it is that from time to time, we're going to have to talk about why what happens in Jackson and why what happens in Washington matters to you, because it takes a village to make a conservation effort happen in the state. Nonprofit communities coming together, the state doing its job, the private sector doing this job, outdoorsmen and women doing their job, the federal government doing their job. There's a lot of different people who have to work together, don't they, Justin?
Absolutely. And, whether you're a deer hunter or a duck hunter or enjoy dove hunting, policy is going to affect how you go about those hobbies. And so you need to be engaged. You need to have a voice, be connected to your representative, both on a state and national level, to make sure that, what they're doing is in step with what we're seeing out there in the real world.
No doubt, and Mississippi has done a really good job. And I often talk about Aldo Leopold and the North American wildlife model and how we adopted that, and what the state of wild turkey hunting was at one time and what the state of whitetail deer hunting was at one time. The alligator program at the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, another great example. But we've adopted the principles that wildlife belong to the people, and we've got a central organization in the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks that helps us with that conservation effort, and it's going well for Mississippi. And I don't want to ever see anything happen that would change any of that would change any of what has been our hallmark to becoming the capital of the outdoors in America. And listen, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Nature Conservancy and the role the Nature Conservancy has played, not just in your direct work, but also indirectly the leadership role that you have played. And that's how I actually got to know Alex Littlejohn over the past 2 or 3 years. Okay, so let's shift gears. You love the bow hunt, but we'll come back to that in just a second. And you went to Mississippi State, where so many conservation leaders in the state went. Who taught you a love of the outdoors? At what age did you realize that this was going to be important to you?
So some of my earliest memories, Ricky, are with my grandfather. I mean, back to 4 or 5 years old, taking naps in the deer stand with him, telling him to wake me up when he sees something, because I was too tired. I was waiting for the sun to come up. So he really instilled my passion of deer hunting. My brother and I grew up doing that. Of course, my dad participated as well, but it was those memories of going to deer camp with Papa Tony, is what I refer to him as. He's passed since, and I'm extremely grateful for that. And now I see that same kind of revolution as I have 2 young kids, and the time they cherish with their grandfather as well.
Man, oh my gosh. The older you get, now you got 2 kids, the older you get, the more you're going to realize that the only thing that matters is leaving a legacy for them. And the legacy of the outdoors that so many kids in Mississippi get introduced to, it changes them. It makes them more responsible citizens. It gives them a passion for that part of their life. It gives them balance in their life. It teaches them how to go about life in a safe way and be responsible and be ethical and all those things. But my story too, as I've shared on this show many times, my dad loved to fish and hunt, and we had great memories together. But he worked a lot, so as a result of that, I spent a lot of time in the outdoors with both of my grandfathers. And gosh, some of the best memories of my life are focused on what they did for me. And, I wish I could sit them down right now and say, gosh, did it make a difference? If you could see the room that I'm in right now, you would realize that the outdoors has really defined me, really, to be honest with you, throughout my career. Absolutely. It defined me. I had a friend of mine, he's been on the show before, incidentally. His name is Terry Waldrop. And once Terry got a promotion, he's a marine engineer. He's still working today extremely successfully. And his boss gave him a promotion once, and he looked his boss in the eye and he said, "Let me make sure, I'm very clear about this. I'm excited to get this job, but don't ever be confused. The reason I work is to put gas in my boat." And he meant it too. Terry meant it too, but it made a big influence on you, and it literally defined how your career was going to be, didn't it?
It did, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. Because I know, day in and day out, what I'm doing is affecting, overall wildlife conservation in the state of Mississippi, which I care deeply about. And I want to make sure that my kids have not only the same opportunities I have, but even greater opportunities. I think we all want that.
So you and I were sharing a little notes about your bow hunting obsession. My son Jordan has that too. But You've had a lot of fun bow hunting, haven't you, my friend?
Absolutely. It's like Toxie Hayes and the Mossy Oak team says, it's not a passion, it is an obsession. It truly consumes me from the summer, scouting for deer, and then throughout the fall and winter. And there's something about being mobile and having those deer in close, just the nervous energy, the adrenaline rush. When that goes away, I'm going to stop doing it, and I pray it never does. But yes, I absolutely love it.
I mentioned to you that my son Jordan, he's got actually a brand new Matthews bow, and we've got a play area on the property next to us, and it declines down to the marsh of Biloxi Bay, and I've got a target set up down there, and he was in a 1-inch pattern. He was putting arrows. He did 4 in a row. None of them were outside of an inch at 55 yards in the wind. The new technology of these bows is incredible.
Absolutely. I can remember my first bow. I had kind of a bow from Walmart that was kind of a long bow, recurve, kind of just practice. And I'd been begging my parents to get me a bow, and Dad finally said, "Look, if you can hit this target at 25 yards so many times in a row," and we had no idea what kind of spark that lit. And no, the technology has come so far.
It really has. So you went to Mississippi State, and what'd you get your degree in?
So I was actually a business major. I didn't find a passion for politics later in life, and I've been involved in policy at first with Farm Bureau before it came to TNC, and now it's been about 10 years.
Yeah, well, listen, Farm Bureau is a really good place to cut your teeth, by the way, because they've got a long history of policy and political engagement for the good of outdoorsmen and farmers, and the story better than I do. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll do our final segment with Justin Brooks, who's the Director of Governmental Relations for the Nature Conservancy in Mississippi, and we'll talk about some of the big issues they're working on these days, and we'll see you after this. Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. I have my friend Justin Brooks, who's the Director of Government Relations for the Nature Conservancy here in Mississippi. And, it's interesting, Justin, it doesn't matter who I talk to. Everyone has a story to tell about how they came to, especially people involved in the conservation community, have a story to tell about how they got so connected to the outdoors and conservation. And as you mentioned before we went to break, you spent some time at the Farm Bureau after going to school at Mississippi State, and then you landed in this position. But, I tell you what, the Nature Conservancy, they are heavy duty involved in policy that affects conservation efforts across the state. I'd have to actually say they're one of the most important conservation organizations in the United States. But do you see it that way as well?
Absolutely. We've got a chapter and staff in all 50 states and also 74 countries around the world. So we're involved on a high level on both policy here in the U.S., but also internationally as well.
As it relates to the Farm Bill, I don't know that people realized when the Farm Bill was enacted that it would lead to so much incredible conservation. For anyone who's just ever used the word CRP, you may not realize it. It's the Farm Bill that created the opportunity for us to set aside so much amazing land that's helped in our wildlife management efforts. But the Farm Bill has had incredible, far-reaching impact, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It's the single-handedly largest piece of public funding opportunity for private lands conservation across the U.S. We're talking several $billions a year, and like you said, it has changed habitat, all the way from California to the East Coast.
As they go through or went through the reauthorization efforts, where are we as it relates to that?
Yeah, so the 2018 Farm Bill will expire in September. Congress reauthorizes this legislation every 5 years. As you know now, Congress looks a little different with Republicans controlling the House and Senate, the Democrats controlling the Senate. So we're going to have a strong level of bipartisanship on this work, and we've been working on this since pretty much the 2018 Farm Bill was signed into law in December of 18. So it takes, like you said, a village to get something like this done. And unfortunately, if we can get to a consensus before the end of September, that's great. However, if we see if Congress will authorize an extension and pass it by the end of the year too, it's really just whatever we can get done within both House and Senate.
You know what's interesting is I watch, and this is not a political show, but as I watch the political scene in America with so much division, the truth is that most of us are somewhere in the middle. And that actually is also true of Congress. We don't talk enough about it because the polarizing ends are not often the ones controlling the conversation. But, if you look back even over the past year, there's been some bipartisan efforts on a lot of stuff. It would seem to me that the Farm Bill is a bipartisan effort that you could create and get together around. What's the signals you're getting out of Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. Agriculture is important in all states, all 50 states, especially in rural states like Mississippi. And then along with the safety net that the Farm Bill provides for farmers and producers, along with the conservation efforts, tied to it is also the SNAP program, which is vitally important to food security for lower income Americans. So all those three things combined really bring both sides of the aisle together to try and work this out.
Hey, there's another really important effort at the national level called the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so RAWA, as it's referred to, our world in policy is full of acronyms, but it stands for Recovering America's Wildlife Act, and this would provide an additional $1 billion a year for state wildlife agencies to conserve wildlife resources locally. I think is the key there. It allows for the states, our Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks here in Mississippi, to decide where that money goes here in Mississippi. It's not going to be fed from DC top down. It's what are our local needs, and then gives them the flexibility to work within the state to accomplish those needs.
In the state of Mississippi, if you look at good Lord, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of actions that have been taken by the Nature Conservancy that have helped in so many different ways. From recovering orchard shells, a project that's happening here in coastal Mississippi, to being engaged in the effort to create the Phil Bryant, wildlife management area. It seems to me that Nature Conservancy has their fingers in a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. We try to stay busy. And I think, the Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund only prolongs that, not only for TNC, but for other conservation groups across the state and state agencies. So we're really excited about that, too.
Well, listen, Justin, we're out of time, but it's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. We'll get you back on soon.
Absolutely, Ricky. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
This has been Justin Brooks from the Nature Conservancy. It's been a great day today. Y'all have a great Labor Day, and we'll see you next week. God bless you, and as I always end the show, stay safe when you're in the outdoors. Always put safety first. Have a great week.